Welcome everybody to V1 seminar. We have a special guest tonight, Dr. Jim Suttie. My name's Gary Pallas. I'm one of the originators of V1, and I've been here probably longer than Doc's been teaching, which is not true. So I just want to welcome him and welcome all of you. This is a sharing of information from one of the best teachers and what I feel is a good communicator. Doc was Teacher of the Year in 2000. I had the privilege of going to Valhalla with him years ago, and it seemed like when we were walking, he knew everybody on the golf course, the players, the coaches. It was truly amazing because I didn't realize that Doc was so popular, and I think he's earned that respect. So I think Doc is mad. I mean, he's just a mad teacher, in my humble opinion. And mad is that he makes a difference in people's lives. So Doc, I want to thank you for joining us, and I'd like you to kind of give a little history of, in my mind, teaching an old dog new tricks and all that. Doc, you've been using technology from day one when technology wasn't even where it's at today, and you continue to want to evolve and learn new things. And so I'd like you to share a little bit of your history with V1, the history of your technology, and see where we go, because the agenda today is building a successful golf business. And what I'm going to do is interject questions that, I'm going to field from different people and things that you and I had talked about so we can share with the audience.
Well, thank you, Gary. That's nice of you. Nice comments you had on me. I started way back when. I hate to tell you when, but I did start a long time ago. And I had these old cameras, that I could barely lift, and they were beginning of technology, and I used to carry them around, and people thought I was crazy videotaping pros on the tee. And then, of course, I sent a lot of them to you guys, and I thought that it was a good way to go about learning golf, because the visual medium of looking at feedback is the best way to learn, according to all the research. I've always said you can talk to somebody until you're blue in the face, but they don't have an understanding until you show them. And so that's where V1 is so important. It's the easiest and simplest way to go, and it's been very valuable to me as I've seen these other systems come out, but your system is by far the best. Really is.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just a little preface, Doc right now is in Twin Eagles down in Florida. He's teaching at an indoor facility. It is a standalone building versus tied into the part of the clubhouse. He has a one base setup. He uses other technology. He uses the force plate, which does the weight measuring. And I think he's currently using a hard physical plate, but he's going to be trying, thanks to Gary, and the V1 pressure mat. He also uses putting technology, which is Sam Putt, and he uses launch monitor, which I believe is TrackMan.
Yes.
So Doc is here during the winter months, and during the summer months, he flip-flops, and he was in Chicago, but now he's teaching out of Park City, Utah. So that's and I just want to share this, Doc, because I remember years ago, technology truly has evolved. Today, we have a really good camera. It connects to a computer with a single wire. Years ago, and I know this for a fact because I used to help Doc pack this stuff up, we almost had to rent a U-Haul to take him from Chicago to Florida and back and forth. He had converters, mixers, splitters. I mean, it was truly incredible how all this was disassembled and reassembled. It was, not quite like building a rocket ship. It was, trust me, very, very complicated. And unless things were marked very exactly, they were never going to get back together again. So I think Doc has never been afraid of going down that road. So can you kind of comment on the technology you use today, Doc, in your lessons?
Well, thanks to you guys, it's been simplified, like you say, and not only simplified, but the quality is so good now. I owe that a lot to you guys, and the information you get, the audio information, the student can easily access, and I've learned that as well. Teaching is an art still, it's not a science, but there's a combination of both. You have to scientifically evaluate it, but I would say, and analytically evaluate it, but you have to be able to communicate it and allow the student to have an understanding of what they're doing. And your system, as I said before, helps that process. As research has proven, 80% of all learning of a closed motor skill like a golf swing is done with visual feedback. And that is research right there. Audio learning is okay, I suppose, but you can only learn so much through the audio spoken word. I always say learning just by the spoken word is like trying to feed a steak through the big toe of a man. That's why you need to have visual feedback.
Thank you, Doc. So going in, you used to give out VHS tapes, and I remember one time, a tape holds 6 hours of video. The way it used to be was that teachers came in, plugged the tape in, hit record, their 1 hour lesson was on the tape. They went home, they watched it, they fast forwarded to certain pieces. They theoretically were supposed to bring the tape back to Doc. He plugged it in for lesson 2 until he filled the tape. Drove him crazy when they didn't bring the tape back. What Doc shared with us too, by the way, was that a lot of times 1 hour lesson, you're not going to watch it over and over. You really can't share it with anybody unless you're passing the physical tape off. It was harder to go to minute 1 and minute 50 because there was no quick way on a VHS tape. So finally we gravitated to CDs. Little bit quicker, you could jump to certain spots, but really a CD was to record the lesson component. So by itself, it was shorter and abbreviated. What happened? CDs are physical. They got lost. Doc did one for me and I scratched it. Doc, can you do it again? There was no record of it. He had literally start from scratch. And then we graduated to DVDs. DVDs were very, very much like a VHS tape. They were designed to be plugged in and you use them for the full 60 minutes. The only advantage of a DVD, no different than movies, is that you can go from 0.1 minute to 0.30 with the touch of a button versus fast forwarding through a tape. Now we've got the internet. So I believe, and Doc will comment on this, is that how he does the internet, does he use the internet? And so I'd like you to share with the students here, the people that are attending, how often and how many lessons do you do? So during a 1 hour lesson, if Anna booked a lesson for you, what would you do with her during that 1 hour lesson? And at some point, maybe not right now, but we can jump and do a screen share, because what I do want you to do is also share some of the drawings you do and what you feel is valuable in the actual golf swing using the V1 technology.
Sure. Well, how I give a lesson basically is what you're asking, I suppose. What I do use the internet quite a bit, and the student, I encourage him to go over his lesson when he gets home, because that's the only way learning can take place. I have a little saying, I can teach you, but I can't learn you. The learning part is kind of the students. That's why I provide a practice program for him. But how I give a lesson, my lesson starts outside. I will film the student from 3 different angles, from the side, down the line, and from the rear. And in my studio, I have an overhead camera as well when we work inside. The 3 angles are I think, give them a good perspective in the sense that you can see almost everything, even though it's not 3D, it's 2D, but it's still very valuable to have those 3 angles. Then we'll go inside after I go over the tape with the student. I get a good understanding of the swing pattern of the student outside. I don't say too much when I'm filming them. I just watch and film them, and I get an idea of his swing pattern. And so in my teaching, I try to teach what I call matching swing elements. If a person does this, then he must have this certain matching element in his swing to make that work for impact. A ball flight is highly important. I will really emphasize ball flight, and if a guy can repeat what he does, I don't care how ugly it looks. It must repeat. That's all it has to do. So we'll work on the inside, and we'll work on this matching swing elements. And as we work, I will maybe go over 2, maybe 3 things that cause the problem. I won't work on results. I work on causes that make the results happen. So very important to understand the causes and not the results. So many of us, I guess, as a young teacher, I used to teach more to results. Oh, this doesn't look right, so do this. But I found out that there is no perfect swing. And if you're trying to create a perfect swing, it's just not going to work. My dissertation was putting a modeling technique together and trying to do a perfect golf swing based on many pros on the tour. But a perfect swing does not exist. You have to work with a pattern that the individual has. So basically, in a nutshell, that's really how I would give a lesson, Gary.
Great. And when you deliver a lesson via the internet, can you share, like, and I kind of somewhat know the answer because I've worked with you and all that, but can you share what do you exactly deliver to the students? So how many lessons, you might say, during the 1-hour lesson do you give them, and what do you tell them? And just as important, Doc, do you do that when the student is right here, or do you wait till they leave and go home and then you go back at 10 o'clock at night and do the lessons?
No, I want them to know the more immediate and quicker the feedback, the better, the more valuable it is to the students. So feedback that's delayed is important, but it's delayed feedback is not the way to go. You want continual, immediate feedback is the best way to learn something. But as I said before, understanding is the first part of learning. And so the V1 system gives you understanding, and the immediate feedback is very important. And so I would try to get the student to understand what he's doing and have him ask a lot of questions. And of course, even before the lesson takes place, I find out what the student wants out of the lesson and what his physical parameters are, what he can and can't do. And I kind of evaluate that as we're going on to the lesson. I see his flexibility pattern and his strength pattern and his club head speed. A lot of this information the student passes on to me before he even starts, but just trying to find out what the student can and can't do instead of trying to put him in something that's impossible for him to do. So
good. So it sounds like you're very custom for the student. When
very
you do an internet lesson.
Yeah, I don't even do big schools anymore, only because I don't think they're very valuable because everybody is different, and it's very difficult for you say, well, everybody must do this. It just doesn't work because everybody is so different. If you want to give a good lesson, you have to customize it.
Gotcha. And how long is your internet lesson to a student?
I use an hour lesson, and I will give packages of 3, 5, or 10 lessons, depending on the level of the student and what they do want, you know. And I think that's the best way to go. And I don't work on more than 2 or 3 fundamentals that I think are necessary during the lesson, because the brain just can't take it. you have 1.5 seconds. And if you're presenting 7 things to a student, he's not getting anything out of the lesson. So it's got to be done that way.
And when you actually put the student's video on and draw lines and comment, how long is that feedback when you're actually streaming and sending him the lesson?
I'll draw lines on his hips. I'll draw lines on his circle on his head. I'll look at his flexibility and see if he should be moving a little bit or not moving. That takes, I do it immediately, and it just doesn't take long at all. I mean, it's just like 4 or 5 seconds, but I definitely will have him sit there and look. Like if a person is swaying, I'll look at his hips and say, well, look at your hips are swaying. You can't do that, or you're going to flip the club at the bottom.
Gotcha.
So it takes place immediately. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to field a couple questions, but at some point when you're comfortable, I'd like to bring your screen up and have you bring up some videos.
Sure.
So part of the feedback, Doc, I wanted to share with the people is that what I've noticed when I watch some of the stuff you doing, and quite honestly, over the years, we made a change in our software to accommodate your teaching style. So your teaching style in a 1-hour lesson to me, that if you were teaching me, when I walked away, I might have 4 2-minute tidbits from you during that 1-hour lesson is the summary, not 1 10-minute dissertation, but I think you broke them down into little tidbits.
Right.
So, and I think you did that within the scope of an hour. And when we show the video, I'd like you to share with, in the first 10 minutes, I like to do this with the guy and I send it to him. Then we work on this. And in the next 20 minutes, we do this and I show them. I don't know if that's how you do it, but I'd like you to share that teaching style with the audience. So maybe we switch and put the V1 screen on.
Okay.
If we can do the screen share.
Sure.
And then as you're thinking too, we've got some questions that are coming through, like David asks, how long do you spend in studio?
Okay, I'll show my screen now.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Okay, I have some pros here, but I also have an amateur I gave a lesson to today. Would you like to see the amateur's lesson, or would you like to see these pure striking pros?
Let's work with the amateur.
Okay.
Because I think that's what we want to work with, and then I know you do teach and work with some tour players as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is the lesson I gave today to this young man here, and he wants to get better. So he is what I would term a shut face player. So I want to address his club face first. That would be and I want to find out, he has a disability in his, is it his left knee, I think it was. So he has trouble getting to his left side. So he told me that ahead of time. So one of the things I would try to do with this guy is to put a flare out his left foot so it's easier for him to turn his hips. And so I would have him, he has trouble with his left leg, so I'd flare his foot out. That makes it easier for him to turn his hips. And I even might open his stance a little bit. And this is the beginning of his lesson right here. And I may draw some lines here on his hips. I do this to see if he's moving. And then I'll put something on his head, a little circle on his head to see what he does there. And I also may put a line on his left shoulder right here to see how he's turning here. So, and then I'll take him through it. And you'll see a very collapsed left side through the hitting area because he's had a shut face. A shut face is going to demand a lot of knee flex through the hitting area. So I wanted to get that face open, so I weakened his grip. And this is the beginning of his lesson. So you're going to see that the shut face probably. Yeah, the face is real shut. He's got a wonderful turn. And I told him that important to be positive with a student as well. If you're just killing him with negative comments, he's not going to like that much. So you got to tell him, hey, you got good this, a good that. Now his downswing, he moves to the left. And now his left knee, you see how the collapsing he does right there. And he's got a back injury called a thing called spondylolisthesis. And he has to guard his back. So I told him this movement here is going to make his back a little worse. So I tried to get his face more open so his back would not be way back like this. And that would be, and now he stands up, but I'd have his lower body get a little straighter. It's hit against more of a left side coming through, and get his face more neutral and his grip a lot weaker is how I handled that. Mm-hmm.
So I have a comment from one of the people in the audience, is that, so it says when people can't do it because of limited flexibility, so there's two choices, right? Mm-hmm. Work with what they have, or no, let's work and make you more flexible. So in this case here, it sounds like what he, a little bit more, we're not going to fix it. So you're going to work with what we have physically. Is that kind of, or would you rather take somebody like, for instance, I'm really stiff. Well, Gary, no, I want you to work on something that's going to make you less, and we're going to work the swing around that. Or are you going to say, no, you're stiff and we're going to make the golf swing work with what you have?
Well, research has also proven that you can only improve flexibility about 30%. I would agree with trying to encourage him to go see somebody to help that get that 30% back. But his problem is in his spine. Spondylolisthesis is a serious deformity of the lower spine. And this is why he bends his knees to take pressure off his spine. So by weakening his grip, he's going to be able to turn a little better, and his face will get more neutral, and he may have to engage his hands and arms a little bit more than somebody who is healthy. And I have to kind of work through the swing that he presently has, but I want to modify it. I'm sure I'm not going to change it completely, and I don't even try, but I want to show you what I did with him here. As I always try to move the student when they're swinging, and I will put lines on them like this. The line on the shaft is the shaft plane, and it'll kind of give you some ideas. Okay, so now taking it back, I'm going to move them. Every student needs to be moved. Unfortunately, you just can't sit back there and say, oh, do this, do that. You also have to move him so he can feel it. So he's going to feel the club staying in front of him, and he's going to feel the club being a little lower and right there. And then the downswing, he will feel it come down parallel with the yellow line, which is on plane. And then he'll try to turn through as best he can. That's the problem he has, because he doesn't turn through at all. Presently, he kind of bends his knees, which inhibits your turning of your hips. When you bend your knees that much, you just can't get to your left side. So he came to me with the question of, I just want to get through it. I just want to get through it. He kept saying that to me, so I understood what he wanted. And so I had to do the things that he wanted so he could get more to his left side and not injure his spine any more than it already is.
And as in everything, so as we're going through here, also talk about your camera angles. And I can see this is kind of like down the spine line. The other one was either on the ball or the club. Right.
This is a front view, of course. And the front view is what I want. I'm going to show them, and I'm going to move them from the side front view here. And a down the line view you just saw. And I have a rear camera as well and an overhead camera. Okay, so now I'm turning his shoulders and turning his hips. People that are inflexible, you really need to feel like they're turning their hips a little bit more. If you turn your hips, you have to turn your shoulders. So the shoulders will automatically turn if the hips turn. And then the downswing, as you can see, I'm kind of getting them the feel of all this. And of course, TrackMan picks up all the information on them. So, but I have the 4 camera angles in there: side, down the line, rear, and overhead.
Do you have any overhead shots?
I didn't do any. I should have done that though. I'm sorry, Gary. I didn't do that.
No, that's fine. I'm interested in knowing the camera position on face on and down the line. Like, where do you put the down the line camera? Are you on his hands?
I do the hand line. I know some teachers will do the target line, but I do the hand line because I'm basically looking at the body from that angle. Well, I might move the camera to down the line over the club head when I'm looking at the ball flight. So this would be a near perfect golf swing here. This guy here is a pro, and you can see how I've got the camera right there. It's more down the target, more down the hand line than it is the club line. And you can see how he is taking it away and keeping the club in front of him. Shaft works up on plane. It's sometimes I check this angle here just by drawing your line here like that. And now I know he's on plane because that club shaft is pointing right at where he's wanting to go here. So, and then continue back. He's got a neutral face, so he's called a square face player. Yeah, every swing isn't perfect like this. This guy's got such a good swing, but he may have a brain problem. You never know. Golf is more than the swing, of course. So there's 3 things you can basically look at in a golf swing. You can look at the body performance, you can look at the shaft performance, and you can look at the club head performance. And then that's where those 3 things. And here's a Jim Furyk. You can see how different this looks. He's real close to the ball, and people that are close to the ball will tend to go up. So you can see everybody would say, "Oh, that's not very good," but you can see that is very good for Jim Furyk. He didn't turn his hips much. Am I going to tell him to turn his hips? No, I will not do that. Because this is his swing pattern. He drops it down where he's supposed to be, and he's got 2 cheeks facing us. You can see how open his body is. And that's why he's such a good ball striker. And then I'll show you a couple more. Here's a cross-handed guy, for example. This next one here. I think we got him there. Yeah. Here's a guy that swings his left hand low, and that's the way he likes to play. Am I going to change that? Probably not.
Oh my gosh.
He's got left hand low, and he hits it about 300 yards doing this. He's pulling the club down, not throwing it down. You can push the club or pull the club, and most amateurs push the club, where I'd like to see him pull the club.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And this is Berger, I believe. He's a very big name on the tour. He plays well every week. And you're going to see him lay the club off. Am I going to tell him he's laid off and he should fix that? No. That's a pretty good position for him. He comes down, and because he has fast hips, he's able to play that way. See, his hips are wide open.
Mm-hmm.
And we have any number of guys I can show you there and why they do what. But the whole thing, Gary, is matching swing elements. You have to match them up to fit the individual person.
So when you're teaching, showing, tour players and that level of golfer,
Mhm.
It's obvious I'm not going to fix that. But what if an amateur came in and had a laid off swing like that? Would you try to fix that? Because he's not playing par golf. He's not a scratch golfer. He's shooting 90. Would you? So there's going to be some difference of what you're teaching an amateur versus a professional. So would you
Oh, you
dig in
definitely
harder?
can.
Hmm?
I would, if a guy is laid off, I wouldn't care if he's laid off. I would care about coming down though. I would want him to be a little bit more on plane. And on plane would mean the club is parallel with the ground at waist high down and not behind him and not cut across in front of him too much. So if waist to waist, 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock is more of what I would be interested in. Let's see here. Maybe I can find somebody doing that. Here's a English. This is the guy that just won last week. And so you can see, watch him on the downswing. He pushes it out and club in front of him very nicely. Good turn. He comes down and he'll stop at waist high down and watch where the club is. Right there. Okay, that's what I'm interested in right there. Waist to waist. And because they all have a different way to get it in that position. If it's too far behind him, then in his hips turn, he's going to leave it out to the right. If it's too far in front of him, he'll let it pull. But this would be perfect, as he showed everybody last week.
Mm-hmm. So would you compare, do you use tour players when you compare with amateurs?
I do compare some, but I don't want the person I want the person to understand that I don't want him to try to emulate anybody's swing. I just show a fundamental. Like I would say, this is a fundamental right here, and everybody tends to do this, but don't try to swing like this because you're not capable. I wouldn't tell them that, but I would say that I'm just teaching a fundamental. I'm not teaching you to swing this way because they cannot swing like pros. Pros do this their whole life, and you have to find out what they can do and try to optimize their performance.
And what kind of drills would you give the gentleman on the left?
For him, that's a good idea. For him to straighten up his left leg and turn his hips through, I'd probably take his left foot and take it way back about 6 to 8 inches and have him stand on the toe so he can understand that he can't collapse it. And that would he would get the feel, and that's what golf is. It's partly feel. It's not just mechanics. He would be able to feel his left leg straightening up when he did that. I might put a shaft in front of his left knee. That would help that as well. And I just kind of continue to work on trying to get his left side straight, because as he comes through, you're going to see how he collapses. Go through there. See all that? That's all a result of he's trying to protect his spine by his knees bent. He's got a shut face, so he's going to have bent knees through impact.
And we have a comment, amazing to see how the static feet position are very different at address.
Yes. Mm-hmm. At address you're talking about?
Yes. Amazing to see how the static feet position are very different at address.
Right. If a person is tight in the hips, you don't want to give him a big wide stance. If he's tight in the hips, you want to probably flare out the left foot quite a bit, maybe flare even the right foot a little bit so he can turn his body a little bit. But those are just little bitty things that seem to help people. And those kind of things, I suppose, you're talking about.
So, I mean, candidly speaking, I didn't say this, but through the chat, would more flare in the right foot help at all? Question mark.
Yeah, he would be able to turn his right hip a lot better. And he already has a pretty good shoulder turn, so that's why I didn't do it with him, but I did flare his left foot. You can see his club face there at the top. It's really shut. And of course, shut face player, and I helped Paul Azinger play good golf. He's a shut-face player. Paul always used to come through the swing with the knees real bent. That's where I learned that, you know, where shut-face players generally have bent knees through the ball. You look at a Dustin Johnson, who is a shut-face player. He is so fast with his hips, and you have to be fast with your hips if you're a shut-face player. You can't have slow hips unless you like to hit a lot of hooks. So those are what they call matching elements. This is Chip Beck right here, who I've worked with when he was on the tour. He's kind of a shut-face player. And what helped Chip the most is what I call the 3 separations in golf. These 3 separations in golf are the left shoulder separates from the chin, the club shaft separates from the right shoulder, and the left knee separates from the right knee. And Sam Snead has an over-exaggeration of that, but he was one of the better ball strikers out there. You can see Chip's knees, how they work.
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. But it's all looking at all the videos I took through the years of open face players, shut face players, square face players, players that loop the club a lot. They do have tendencies, and they all have these certain tendencies depending on the swing pattern they show me. And then you just got to put it together.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're known for tons of video and all that. I just want to share, and again, we're picking on this one guy on the left. Do you have another video of just a chop?
A chopper?
A chopper. Like, do you have my video?
I
don't think you do.
We did mostly the pros. I didn't know if you wanted more of that, but
well, part of working with that gentleman would be, you know, would you get into equipment fitting with him going, man, your back is stiff, I'm going to try to give you longer clubs? Or, I mean, does that ever evolve? Or
yeah, I would stand him up, maybe give him an inch longer club, more upright golf club, more loft. It's tall. This is Mo Norman, for example. He's not a chop. In fact, he's the most unusual golf swing I've seen and the straightest I've ever seen. And I spent many, many hours with Mo, and you can see his setup. He's got what they call a one plane motion before they even knew the word of a one plane motion. But you can look at Mo, and he stands far from the ball. And this is what DeChambeau is doing out on the tour now. And DeChambeau is making it famous, but Mo really made it famous. And this guy the most I've ever seen him hit it offline is 10 yards. So he just comes in, he's just got a one plane swing, and it's going to come right down. And see, he just goes down. All the players now are, the new swing on tour is you go down, you kind of squat as you come into the ball, and then you push up as hard as you can. The ground reaction forces and your machine, the V1 force plate that they use, it's kind of responsible for this, how the feet are so important. You see a guy like Mo, he's using the ground, even though it doesn't look like it, but he's really using the ground. Now, if he got on his knees and hit a ball, he wouldn't hit it anywhere. So that's how important that lower body is, and the use of force platforms. This is, what's his name? Wolf, yeah. Wolf's got a strange swing, but it seems to work quite well. And he's got a big loopy figure 8 swing, like Jim Furyk. So you can see a big loopy swing, but wide open hips, and the club face is not closing down at all, see. So he is one of a kind. There's not too many guys out there like that. Jim Furyk and him lead the pack there on that one. this swing is hard to time though. So timing is critical, and the closer you can swing on plane, both back and through, the better. But you can really swing just about any way you want if you can time it. But this face opens up and closes a lot, which makes it a difficult swing to repeat and stay in good faith.
Would you teach an amateur that?
No, I wouldn't. But let's put up McElroy up here, and you want to watch how he uses his lower body now. This is why this kid hits it so far. He's not a kid, but watch how what his knees do now. Okay, this is a new swing on tour right here. He's going down with his knees and then pushing up, and that's how they use the force platform. Mm-hmm. So your force, go ahead.
Your comment, new swing on tour. We looked at Mr. Wolf, and he's got the interesting start of the swing, which is, I think everybody's loves to see that because they've never seen it before. Mm-hmm. You have Bryson, who's now pounding the ball farther than any golfer ever, right? And with a Mo Norman type swing. Mm-hmm. So all these changes, a comment in the question, I guess, for your feedback is, how has your teaching changed through the years?
Oh, well, most definitely. Through the years, I used to be, well, I have to put him in this position. I have to put him in this position. There really are no positions. I say there's two ways to really hit a golf ball. People with a lot of lag in their downswing, they have to really get their hands way forward and their head way back at impact. Where people like Tom Watson, who had a wide downswing, he does not have to do that. So you either have a person with a lot of width or a person with that's very narrow. Those are the only two ways that I've seen golfers play. It has to do with how the club is delivered. Either way is okay, just that you have to know your student. Like if you're going to put lag in Tom Watson's swing, it would never work because he grew up not doing that. He grew up with a big hip turn, a big shoulder turn, a long swing. This is Tom here. You're going to see a real long swing. And he beat me nicely in the Western Amateur years ago, so it has to be good. And see, he grew up with that swing, and that's what you have to teach him. He has a very good swing, and that's what my teaching has evolved, knowing that these guys are all different, and you have to look at what they have in common and what they do well, and emphasize that. Now, in following up on that, I'll say this: when you look at a person's body, you have to find out what they do well. Like I've worked with Lauren Roberts for years, and since 1992, and Lauren has short arms. So it's going to be kind of stupid to me tell him, hey, Lauren, you need to have a high swing. That's not going to work. Short arm guys have lower swings. Long legs are going to have a little bit of more slide in their swing than a guy that's Ian Woosnam's side, who's just going to be a pure rotator. So you have to give and take a little bit and use the power source that the person has. If they're strong in the hands, don't take them out of it. Doesn't make any sense. The guy has got to use his strengths for power. And if you take out the power source, then you're fighting Mother Nature. So those are some of the changes I've made through the years. I look at the body, I look at the pattern, and I try to match up the swing elements that would fit that particular person.
So it sounds like, I mean, very obvious, but I'm going to summarize a little bit. You do not teach a system and say, this is what you need to do. You really work on the individual, right, and work with their components individually.
Right. like a guy may be real stiff in the upper body. And am I going to say, keep your head absolutely still? No. I'll say, let your head rotate just like you rotate your shoulders and your hips. If you keep it still, you won't be able to turn your shoulders. So you have to evaluate that physical part when the lesson starts. I do that since I've done it so much, I can almost do it watching the person, where a lot of young teachers just don't have enough experience to look at that and see, you know, what the person can and can't do and how tight they really are.
So there's a comment. I don't know if you have that amateur or any amateur to bring up. Is that, let me go back to it. You're as a golf coach, right? So how accountable should golf coaches hold their students? So in other words, you work with a guy and you say, you need to work on this and this and this. And how accountable do you go back if the guy comes back and say, well, did you work on that? Did you hit 3 buckets of balls and work on that specifically, that drill? And I guess along with that is, what about the student that kind of, I'd like to say, like myself, that comes in and I'm looking for a quick fix, and I don't want to go through the, you know, the physical therapy side of stuff and, you know, do this daily for 3 weeks. I just, no, doc, I want to come in, I want to hit the ball farther. I mean, change my grip, change my foot position, change how I take it back flatter, take it back taller. I mean, how do you address a student that puts that on you? And it's really 2 questions, right? One is that I'm telling you to do this, you want to work at it. He's not doing it. The other one says, doc, I'm coming to you and I want to fix the my 100-yard pitching shot.
That's what you have to do, Gary. You have to find out what the student wants, and you have to go with it. I know I have evaluated a lot of teachers. I'm not being critical of teachers, but they try to do the whole ball of wax and change the pattern. But I think that we're better off as a country club student comes to me and he says, I just want more distance. I will make 2 or 3 adjustments to get him more distance. Like it could be more shoulder turn, it could be more lag, it could be faster hips. But the one or 2 things that's going to help him. But keeping uppermost in mind that the face angle is most important. The face angle at impact is more important than anything else, not the path, the face angle. And so I'm very aware of what the face is doing throughout the whole lesson. And if I want to get him more distance, I'll find a way that he can get more distance and maintain the face angle that is going to create more repetition for him. But that's.
And what about the big deal with club head speed and just swing out of your shoes? Or, and again, I don't want to bring up Bryson, but that's a perfect example. Speed equals distance.
Well, yeah, that's true. Club head speed applied properly on the center of the face will create distance. You can have a lot of club head speed hit off the toe or heel and you hit it nowhere. So that's why you always keep the club face in mind. Every lesson I give, every one, I put face tape on their driver. And I always look at the driver because that's the club that's going to tell you the most. And I might work with a 5-iron, but I will watch some drives to find out where they hit the ball on the face of the club and get a good idea of that. And TrackMan gives me some information on that, but it doesn't give me the face angle information. So that's why I like to do that. But if they want more speed, you can probably increase their distance 15 to 20%. But that would be the maximum you're going to increase the distance, unless they're willing to give up their day job and just decide to hit balls all day long and all night. So it's just very difficult to create a lot more club head speed. Young golfers, junior golfers, if they're listening to this tape of you, they have the opportunity to create a lot of speed. And so I would encourage a young golfer, a junior golfer, to swing as hard as he can. Don't worry so much about the precision and the mechanics of it, but swing hard, because that hard swing will stay with them as they get older. But if you swing perfect, try to swing perfect, and you have a slow swing speed, you'll always have that with you even as you get older.
Very interesting, Doc. Comment from Jim. Thoughts on some of the teachers today teaching a bowed left wrist in the downswing?
Okay, I can talk about that. The left wrist should be flat. Bowed wrist is a little dangerous, only because your wrist joint it could dorsiflexion is not so good at impact if you get too much of it. Actually, what you're looking for is the club to straighten up completely at impact. If you have a bowed wrist, you're going to have a shut face and hit a lower ball flight. Right now, I would say a flat wrist is good. A cup wrist is not good. Coming through the hitting area, you don't want those hands as far ahead of the club head as some people get, because the ball flight gets too low. They're hitting the ball awfully high now because they're using huge tees. I don't know if you watch on TV, they get these big long tees and they hit the ball. And Paul Azinger told me the other day, which is probably an interesting comment. He said he went to the USGA and he said, you know how to stop these guys from hitting it so long? Get them a lower tee. How simple is that? Because they can't launch it then. So, but the higher you hit it, the longer the ball is going to go, of course. So if you bow your wrist a lot, you're going to hit low shots.
Gotcha. So there's a fair amount of comments here and questions. So if you took a golfer who's never played golf before, what would you tell him, or what are your fundamentals?
Never played golf before, I start with a waist-to-waist swing. I would put them into a good grip for sure, good stance alignment, posture, show them the basics of a good setup and ball position, and then start doing waist-to-waist swings. And I would demand for him to hook the ball the very first lesson. And I would work on a lot of release, inside out release, because they don't have any idea all these terms and you have to explain things to them. But I would go from a half swing, the first part of the lesson, might get to a 3/4 swing, I'm not sure, depending if he can hook the ball, but I would have to make him hook the ball the very first lesson.
Thank you. And then comment, most amateurs have open faces and are steep in the downswing. Would you change the face angle first or shallow the swing?
That's a very good question. I think almost have to do both, but the face angle is probably the most important. You can change the face angle so the ball pulls with the outside in swing. Once he starts pulling it, the human mind reacts to ball flight. So you see enough balls going to the left, and guess what? You're going to start swinging to the right. Just like when you slice the ball, if you slice the ball continuously, you'll start swinging to the left. So it's a conscious, unconscious process that we go through, even though we don't know we're going through it. But I would change the face first and then lower the swing in that order.
Gotcha. And we talked about drills earlier when you were showing something. So the question is, do you demo and send drills as part of your video lesson? How do you deliver the drills to the student?
Yeah, drills are good. But, you know, here's the research on drills, Gary. Drills are good. I mean, I'm not saying anything against drills, but they are not the golf swing. That's a different pattern, basically. It's just emphasizing a certain part of the golf swing. So I do use drills, but I want the audience to understand that drills are not the swing. So you may go back to your old swing after you get done with the drills. So the best way to learn a closed motor skill through the feedback of visual feedback and V1 system is to try to do it a full swing at half speed. In other words, change your speeds. And if you change your speeds, you're able to do the fundamental. So if you try to swing as hard as you can on every swing, you can't change your pattern very well, and then have a specific place where you want the ball to start out. Say, I want the ball to start out to the right and then draw. But drills are good, and I do include them in on my learning idea, but they are for a specific part of the swing, and then they're not the golf swing. Mm-hmm.
So I think we have a couple more, but we're winding here. I have a business question that when you charge, do you have somebody that can come in and pay a monthly fee and get lessons, or is everything strictly hour by hour? And how do they schedule lessons?
Oh, they usually call me. I tried the internet, and it just got too confusing for people, and I got all messed up. So I just say you must call. That's the best way. I schedule lessons. Usually, normally a person will come in. I'm not a genius, so I try to encourage them to take 3 lessons, which I do, and then I have a package of 5 lessons and a package of 10 lessons, and I can take them even for more than 10 if they'd like to do that, you know. And I would encourage them once a week to take the lesson and practice at least twice. I will give every person a practice program when they leave. I would tell them exactly what I want them to do. And as I said before, I can teach you, but I can't learn you. Teaching and understanding is the first part of learning, but you have to do the learning by doing the work, you know. So that's how I generally do it, Gary.
Gotcha. And this is really a great question. I'm hopefully I won't butcher it, and I apologize. We're running right to the end, but from the business side, you started out as a new teacher, as a lot of people are out there now, and they can charge X amount of dollars for an hour. Mm-hmm. Now you, Doc, you've learned technology. You're a biochemist, or not biochemist.
That's
what I mean.
Probably what I am now.
Biomechanic skills. So, I mean, you've amassed this, you're teacher of the year. So from a business perspective, you've gained a lot of knowledge over the years. Does that translate into, gee, I can charge twice as much as I did 10 years ago? So it's kind of, I fielded this question, I ad-libbed a little bit into it, but from a business standpoint, are you comfortable with what you charge, I guess?
I don't charge a lot, to be truthful, Gary. I enjoy teaching, and I don't charge as much as probably what I should. My wife tells me that anyway. And I do give them a lot, but I just feel that people don't want to be absorbed in a $500 lesson or $400 lesson, because it's not good for either party. So I charge around $150, you know, and I don't try to kill them with the price. So
right, very fair, and in my personal opinion, what a great deal. So we've reached the limit. I don't know if this thing's going to go dark, but I want to personally thank Doc, and I want to thank everybody for participating, and thank you for sharing the comments via the chat box. And I'd like Doc to say, Doc, you can close it out and tell everybody final words and thank them for the attendance.
Well, if you get messed up, you can come out and see me. And I got an 800 number, 800-765-3838. And I'm really happy that I could add to your knowledge out there. And only way you can ever get better is keep on learning.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great evening, and talk to you soon, Doc.
Okay. Thanks, Gary.